Alright, what is going on YouTube? Bruce here again. This time around, just keeping it very plain, keeping it very simple this time. We're doing a Perforate Champion. So very easy, very simple build, nothing crazy this time. I just felt like doing a melee character, and I wanted to keep it plain and simple. So this right here, this is Perforate. That's Perforate. It is a stance swapping, stance dependent ability. So you have blood and sand on. That's what it looks like in sand stance. Is that? And when it's in blood stance, it looks like that. Looks like a bunch of spikes coming out of the ground and impaling stuff. So that's the build. Literally, that's it. And you have the usual. You have your ancestral war chief and protector as per usual for just about any melee build, realistically. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun with this character. I kind of wanted to make it just like a very simple build, a very simple kind of just guide, and just kind of going over Perforate. So we're going Perforate Impale. I'll very quickly just talk about leveling as well. Leveling wise, this character was very much so just level as Perforate. You get Perforate very early on. I grabbed an anomalous Perforate because that gives you a chance to impale, and since we are going full impale mode, we're doing everything impale. We want as much impale as we possibly can. Might as well just take the anomalous version. Anomalous, very cheap, not anything crazy whatsoever. We are also rocking dual-wielding Veranostra. You could probably make a version of this build using one Veranostra and a shield instead, and you would just adjust the skill tree accordingly, remove the dual-wielding masteries, dual-wielding cluster jewels, and you would instead just put on some attack damage with shields. And instead of taking dual wield stuff, you would just take shield stuff. But that is all dependent on whatever you want to do. So again, like I said, the leveling with this very easy. You just have generic weapons, generic rares or generic uniques, whatever you have, and just level with Perforate. And from there we'll just kind of move on. So for now, let's talk about skill gems first. So what do we have? What are we using? And I'll move into items after we do that. So first things first, just faster attack with Whirling Blades and Leap Slam. This is just for our movement skills. As you can see, Whirling Blades keeps us pretty quick. You probably realistically don't need faster attacks. You could replace this with something else, maybe. Well, I guess no, we don't need Fortify support. But you could replace this with something else if you wanted to. I just don't think it's a big deal, so I had an open socket, so I decided just for faster attacks. So we have Leap Slam, and we have Whirling Blades. Leap Slam for when you're getting up onto other areas. Whirling Blade for your general movement around with the skill. Otherwise, we have Blood Rage, Dread Banner, and Berserk over here. You could probably attach these to an Enhance if you wanted to, or maybe down here you could do an Enhance instead of MAME support. But we'll talk about that in a second. So first off, though, obviously Dread Banner is a must. That reminds me, I don't have Dread Banner on. I just have the invisible effect turned on, so you will not be able to see it on this character, but Dread Banner, very good, very effective for any kind of Impale build whatsoever, so, you know, use it where you can. And since we're playing as a champion, that means that we have free reservation on banner skills thanks to Inspiration, so we're using Dread Banner, of course. That's just the natural one to go with Impales. Berserk, because Berserk is good, and we have a way to generate Rage, so any way to generate Rage, then being able to actually pop into Berserk, very good. Let's see, and then what else did I say? Blood Rage. Yeah, Blood Rage is just good. Generally just good, gives you your frenzy charges, gives you attack speed, gives you some leech. Just good for mapping, and isn't bad against bosses either. Helmet slot wise, we're using Pride, Precision, and Determination with an Enlightened support slotted in there to make this actually cheap enough to be able to use. I'll talk about this a bit later, but these I believe are the biggest auras that you're going to be using. The other ones are obviously Blood and Sand and Dread Banner, which Dread Banner doesn't take up any reservation. Again, inspirational. For our gloves, we have Poacher's Mark with a life tap and mark on hit. Poacher's Mark is very good. Gives us frenzy charges if we kill the thing that we're doing. Otherwise, it just gives us a bunch of life and mana and gives the enemy less physical damage reduction and adds some physical damage against the cursed target, which against bosses and thicker targets just makes things a lot easier. So we're using that mark, and then we have Blood and Sand just sitting right there. This isn't level 6 yet, obviously. A lot of these gems will need to be leveled up still, but this character is still very much so in the works. I am only level 90, as you can see here. Copium delivery requested. Level 90 character. And then for our support skills that we're using, Ancestral Protector and War Chief, We have Phantasmal Ancestral Protector. It's not necessary. You can use regular Protector. So let me just say that right now. It is just a nice thing to have on top of the benefits that Ancestral Protector already provides. But Ancestral Protector gives some good benefits to any kind of melee skills, and the Phantasmal version gives increased effect of the Ancestor Totem buff. And then you're just using Ancestor Warchief, Vol Ancestor Warchief, ideally, with multiple totem support, and this one is using Maim as well, because you can get some additional benefits for targets being maimed. So that's all that is. Belt-wise, we're using Rislatha's Coil. Now, you don't necessarily need to use Rislatha's Coil. This is just very good as a general attacker. This is a very good physical damage belt. But you don't necessarily need to use that if you didn't want to. If you really want to, you could use... Where is it? Sorry, I'm a little bit... Perseverance. You could instead use this belt. This is also a very strong belt, and instead you could try to get one with a Corrupted Implicit of Determination as increased effect, or something along those lines. This is also a very good belt. This gives you permanent onslaught, which is super good, and also more attack damage per lowest of armor and evasion rating. I'll kind of go into the evasion rating thing in a little bit here. And then the next thing, item-wise, we'll talk about just ring. I think I just needed the intelligence. Yeah, I do. I actually just need the intelligence in order to use the enlightened support, actually. It uses 73 int. I did not have enough intelligence as is. So this ring really isn't anything spectacular. It has life, it has resistances, it has some intelligence. That's literally all that it needed to do. But this could potentially be something much, much bigger, and I will probably be looking to replace that fairly immediately with this character. This ring over here is also it's pretty good. It does what it needed to do. The increased rarity, obviously, if that was life instead of rarity, that would be a lot nicer. But the phys damage attack leeches life is very nice. The life per enemy killed is good. Fire res very good. But the main thing is being able to curse enemies with vulnerability on hit. That is very important. I also just realized I didn't talk about my chest piece and what setup we're using to perforate, so let's do that really quick. Very sorry. So perforate wise, we're using Ruthless support. Just because we are using multi-strike, so realistically we'll be hitting with the Ruthless hit pretty often. So Ruthless support, very good for this build. I'm not really a huge fan of Ruthless support. You could probably replace this for something else if you really wanted to. Trying to think of what you could replace it with. You could honestly replace it with Divergent Chance to Bleed, which is this gem. Just gives more added phys damage with weapons. And supporter skills deal more added damage for targets that are bleeding. So realistically, you could replace it with that if you also are not somebody who enjoys Ruthless, but obviously, as you can tell, it's a pretty expensive gem, so don't feel like you necessarily need to. Ruthless is still completely fine, and obviously I'm using it too. Awakened Brutality, this one needs to be, I just have to work on leveling it up. That's all I'm doing with this guy. But level 5 gives you a chance to crush, which is nice, and otherwise just more phys damage. It is a very good gem. We're using multi-strike. If this was Divergent multi-strike or Awakened multi-strike, obviously that'd be incredibly good, but I just have not taken the time to actually buy it for this character. It's like 3.5 divines for a Divergent multi-strike, so it's a bit on the expensive side. It gives you more attack speed instead of the increased melee phys damage, but again, that's a very good gem. So that's just a matter of whatever you want to do or how far you want to go with this build. Then we're using an Awakened melee phys damage support. This is very important to get to level 5 whenever you can, because of the fact that it gives you a chance to intimidate, and also more damage with targets against that are bleeding. Very good, very, very strong support gem. Very good for this build, and just gives you the chance to intimidate, obviously, like I say. And then lastly, we're using Volatility support. Gives you more maximum attack damage, less minimum attack damage. Just a very strong, just keeps the gap. It widens the gap between the damage that you're doing, but it is a very strong support gem, and actually I need to quality this and then start leveling it as well. But let's go back to, and then we'll just go back to talking about items. So yeah, I was talking about the ring. Ring has vulnerability on hit, that's good. Amulet wise, we're just looking for crit, life, resistances, all phys skill gems here. Like this one has here. This is pretty much a perfect amulet for my purposes. I don't know if I need the dexterity at this point. I may eventually be able to swap out of the dexterity with some changes that I'll be talking about in the when we start talking about the skill tree. But realistically, this is basically fine for its purposes as it stands right now. Not a bad amulet, not a good one. Well, I guess actually it's pretty good. Never mind. Let me change my mind. there. It's pretty decent. It does what it needs to do, and that's the important thing. Helmet-wise, we're using an increased attack damage with increased vulnerability effect, along with the enchant that gives Perforate +2 spikes. That is actually very important for our single target DPS. It also makes it easier for clearing, but for our single target DPS, it actually makes it very, very good. So Perforate +2 spikes. I think you can roll something better as far as the implicits go. I haven't taken the time to look at which implicits are better. So whatever seems good to you. I think mana reservation efficiency is in there, so you could roll that instead. But otherwise, this helmet will eventually probably get re-rolled, be something a little bit better, or I'll switch the base entirely for taking an armor evasion rating instead, so I can actually get some spell suppression. I will talk about that again in a little bit. But yeah, just generic helmet, has resistances, has armor, has some life that I just crafted on it. Whatever, it suits its purpose. Next up is Veranastra. Like I was saying, Veranastra, very, very good for this build. Just gives you a bunch of fizz damage, some mana per enemy hit, and then it counts as all one-hand melee weapons. Very, very good, very strong for setting up on the skill tree, and just allows us to kind of go a lot of creative ways with it. You can get some corrupted ones. This one is corrupted with increased AoE, just kind of nice for the sand variant, and a little bit so for the blood variant as well. Just kind of makes things a little bit easier to hit. So nothing wrong with that. Dual Veranastra though, very, very good. And it was just a lot of fun. I recently had seen Mathel make a build using Veranastra, and that just kind of made me go, you know what? I don't think I've ever done a build with Veranastra. So I made this guy, and I've been having a ton of fun with it. Next up, let's talk the gloves. Glove-wise, you probably don't need to go this route. You could actually do an Eldritch and Eater, or yeah, you could do Eldritch Implicits glove instead. I decided I wanted to do this because I saw that there was an additional effect that you could get with Impale through Hunter, which is % chance to impale enemies on hit with attacks, as you see. And then also it adds more fizz damage for each impale on the enemy, which thanks to Master of Metal and one of the things on the tree, that just adds a good bit more fizz damage per impale. This could obviously be rolled better. As you see, it goes 3 to 5, so it kind of base rolled on the max damage, so it could go higher. But yeah, I made this glove. I was pretty happy with it. I managed to get the reason that it has the adds 2 to 5 potential fizz damage per each impale is because of being able to Maven Orb this. So I Maven Orbed this glove. Yeah, I just Maven Orbed it, and that gives you, I can't remember what that orb is called now. Orb of, is it Dominance, or am I thinking of this one? Yeah, I think it's Orb of Dominance now. The actual Maven Orb, not the Orb of Conflict. The Orb of Dominance it hit this, got very lucky, and the overall glove itself outside of that was quite good. And obviously if it's had life on it instead, that would be nice, but again, it has big resistances, it has a decent armor roll. The Impale effect, the added Impale damage is very nice, just has some good added fizz damage to attacks. So it's a pretty good glove. You could make a bigger one if you wanted to by probably Awakener Orbing this with a Warlord glove for increased melee damage. So you could make it even bigger if you wanted to, and then try to just scale it up from there. I'm good with the Hunter version of it. I'm just leaving it at that because it's probably as good as it's going to get as far as that goes, and it's probably about as lucky as I'm going to get realistically as well. Boot wise, this isn't anything crazy. They have 30 move speed. They have T1 Chaos Res, which also feels very nice. Has a little bit of added life, a little bit of added armor. Not crazy. I'll probably roll these boots again at some point, but they really just aren't anything that spectacular. Also, the increased cooldown recovery of travel skills literally doesn't matter. Yeah, you can roll that to a different Eater of Worlds influence. As you can see, though, I don't have any Eater of Worlds goo at this point, though, so I cannot roll to anything else that is better. I, again, can't remember. I would leave that to you individually to figure out which is better for Eater of Worlds, but the cooldown recovery rate of skills really doesn't do anything. And just to further increase move speed is obviously just nice. You just move a little bit faster. Yay! We go around. We run fast. Last thing is the armor here. So the most important thing here that it has is attacks have 1.26% to critical strike chance, which just gives it a base critical strike chance of plus 1.2, which is very nice. And then you can apply an additional curse. obviously very good. We have curse enemies with vulnerability on hit here, and we have our poacher's mark here. Both very important again for this build. This isn't the craziest armor that you can make. It's in fact, I mean, the rest of it's okay, you know. The regenerate life is decent, but the max life roll is terrible. I actually hate that it hit that. And the increased armor and sunblock recovery is fine, but it's really not anything that you need. But the ultimate goal for this build, I'll kind of start talking now. Then I've kind of gone over the items. Oh, and then flask-wise, we're using generic just flask, life flask, quicksilver flask, granite flask. You don't need to use Rumi's concoction. You could probably use a bigger, just granite flask, and that would probably be better. I'm kind of thinking about just doing that as well. But I had a Rumi's, I figured I'd use it. We're using Bottled Faith just for the additional crit chance. Again, don't necessarily need it. I very recently added it to this character. It's just very strong, but you don't necessarily need it. And then just Diamond Flask for more crit, and it has some attack speed as well on use. So I'll move into kind of talking about what gear-wise we'll start looking at for the character in the future. As I was saying, I might be swapping out this helmet for a different Perforate Create spikes. And I will also be swapping out the body armor whenever I get this piece here 6-linked. And that is specifically because of the fact that it has chance to suppress spell damage. One of the big holdbacks of this character so far has been spell damage. Like, physical damage-wise, outside of TOTA and getting one-shot by things in TOTA, this character doesn't usually get one-shot by things that phys damage-wise, but it does get hit pretty hard by things with spell damage. So I'm kind of trying to swap my armor around to instead have more spell damage, and I'm also going to be switching the tree and kind of shuffling things off to more the right side of the tree to try to get some more spell suppression and eventually hit 100%, just because that makes things a bit more comfortable with the build overall. But you can see this armor, unfortunately it hit a good old tier 10 chance to regenerate life, but it does have the attack crit, and it has tier 2 chance to suppress spell damage. Again, I'm not going to push my luck because I don't think I'm that lucky, and I'm also not rich enough to just continue to roll it until it hits tier 1 along with something else good. So I'm probably just going to lock it in as is, and then I'm just going to roll it with caster blue juice. I'll need to get some more blue juice. But I'll do a suffixes can't be changed, and then I will lock that, and then I will do a caster reroll on it, and it will give us the you can apply additional curse guaranteed. Keep in mind that if you ever do that roll, you need to make sure all of your suffixes are held, because if you don't have all of your suffixes in a row, then when you slam it, it's possible that it will hit spell crit instead of you can apply an additional curse, which will, unless you're doing cast on crit something, can screw you over. So this will be eventually what I swap into. I'm kind of just waiting to actually 6-link it and then just slam it and see what it hits, and hopefully it's something good. Let's see, otherwise, and then yeah, I'll probably be trying to roll more spell suppression on the helmet. I'll probably swap this out, get some more spell suppress, and hit it with some Eldritch Embers and Ichor, maybe get something better than attack damage and Vuln Curse effect. And I'll just be trying to get some more spell suppress, probably wherever I can, and try to hit 100%. And then let's talk about the tree really quick. So tree-wise, we're just kind of coming out from the left side and coming down and around. I will say this Spirit of Akoya tattoo is not very necessary because I don't generate rage quickly enough to make this super worth it. But it's pretty cool, and I just kind of wanted to use a loyalty tattoo just to have one. But realistically, the adds 2 to 3 fizz damage of Tattoo of Kitava Warrior is actually just better, and you could very much so just replace this with more added fizz damage. And I think you could probably replace with any of the strength nodes with more of the added fizz damage wherever you can fit it in, without going over obviously whatever you need for your strength requirements. I know this Astral Plate requires 180 strength, but the Triumphant Lamellar does not require that much strength at all, and so you could very much so instead replace a lot of these with more added fizz damage to attack to everything, just generic. You very much so could do that. You also might potentially be able to take something that's better on one of these nodes. You could take the gain onslaught on hit, so that you don't have to use Perseverance if you don't want to, and could stick to Raslotha's Toil. That's sort of something I'm considering. And then yeah, otherwise here's the tree overall. We're just taking this. This is probably one of the nodes I'm going to unspec first, as far as swapping up the tree goes, to go towards the spell suppression over here on the right side. So I'll probably be taking away these bleeding nodes. Realistically, the most important node for this is the increased critical strike chance for bleeding enemies. Just gives us more crit. It's just good as far as that goes, but it's not, again, not anything crazy, not necessary. It just gives us more consistency on our crits, but it is 5 points that we're taking just for that, which again we could use instead over here. So this is so otherwise that's sort of worth ignoring. We can probably remove those. We can also remove these 2 small life nodes here to again make our way up there, and also we'll be taking Herbalism and taking these small nodes here and take Herbalism, which will then also open us up some more so we don't feel quite as bad for losing these max life. As you can see, I only have a little over 3,000 life, so pretty low. We are taking Merciless Skewering, of course, for the increased Impale effect, and just good Impale effect overall. And then we're taking the Impale Mastery for 10% chance on hitting an enemy for all Impales an enemy last an additional hit. Very nice. Again, just adds more damage to us. Cluster Jewel wise, I'm using 2 Cluster Jewels that regard dual wielding, because that's just, we're dual wielding Varanostras on this version. This one isn't crazy. It's not a 3 passive. It's just Combat Rhythm and Martial Prowess. Martial Prowess, attack damage, attack speed, accuracy, damage with ailments. Doesn't need to be anything that crazy. Combat Rhythm as well. Attack speed if you've hit with your main hand weapon, and move speed if you hit with your offhand weapon. So, yeah, it's decent. And then over here we have Feed the Fury and Quick and Deadly. So Feed the Fury, attack damage leech, increase damage while leeching, increase attack speed while you're leeching. Quick and Deadly for more main hand attack damage while wielding 2 different weapon types, and main hand and offhand attack speed while again wielding 2 different weapon types. Since Varanostra counts as all one-handed weapon types, it therefore also counts as 2 different weapon types, which is very nice. That also allows us to kind of build into one of these over here. For the dual wielding mastery, you can take % increased attack damage while wielding 2 different weapon types, because again, it counts as 2 different weapon types. So bam, there you go, bingo bango bongo. So yeah, we're taking more crit chance while dual wielding. These nodes over here are also pretty nice. They're not entirely necessary, but they are nice. Taking some crit where we can. The axe masteries and the impale stuff that is around here is again very nice. Feller of Foes is incredibly good with the axe damage stuff. We have Hatchet Master here, gives us a chance to get onslaught on kill. Good for mapping. It's still a very good node overall, but it's mostly good for mapping, at least as far as the onslaught effect goes. Taking Champion of the Cause, and we're taking the 8% reservation efficiency here. I came up here and took Bloodless just because, good grief, I needed more life on this skill. Just being in this general area here does not give you a whole lot of life. So came up here and took Bloodless. And then this Lethal Pride right here is actually a very good position. This is actually a super good jewel and just positioning in general to hit a lot of nodes. So we hit these 3 major nodes up here. So we hit Match of the Arena for more crit multi, Bravery for more crit multi, for melee crit chance. Good grief. Art of the Gladiator for a chance to deal double damage. Dervish here gives us again more crit chance. Good. Savagery right here for again more crit chance and gives us 1 max frenzy node. Nothing wrong with that. Revelry gives us some more life regen, which is it's okay. You'll probably find a decent one that hits something better here, but that's still fine. Golden Flood just gives us increased armor. Again, pretty decent. Not anything crazy, but it's pretty good. And then it also hits Surveillance here for more critical strike multiplier. Again, just very good. So this is a very good little circle. You could probably look up some other jewels. There might be some that hit something even better, even thicker. Maybe you get more chance for double damage here, something like that. But it's also just a very good area. The next thing that I'll probably be removing from this build overall is probably Disciple of the Slaughter. This is all just gives you some move speed, some evasion, a little bit more attack speed per frenzy charge, and then just some chance to gain a frenzy charge on kill, damage per frenzy charge, and a min frenzy charge. But it's not that good of a node for 4 points, at least for this build in particular. It is quite good for a lot of builds, but for this build in particular, it's not anything that insane that you need to use. So I would probably say you could entirely spec out of this. You could entirely spec out of Bloodletting and the Mastery. You could take these 2 small points away here, and then instead where you'd want to go is go up here and take Herbalism, and then come up a little bit further, and you could go over here and take Innervate. Just gives you a lot of spell suppress, and pretty much almost caps you. You probably could also take these 2 with Entrench, probably hitting level 95 as well. Come over here, take Entrench with these 2 points here. You go up here, you take Innervate, you have some spell suppress on your gear. And then the last thing is, if you're still not capped yet, you could use some of the tattoos for 2% chance to suppress spell damage instead of these dexterity nodes. So you could use that on the tree instead, wherever you need to hit those. But otherwise, that's probably about as big as the character gets overall, at least as a champion. And I will very quickly say that I did also consider making this build a Slayer, and I very much so think that you could, and instead of anointing Blacksmith's Clout, which is more crit multi, some added damage and added fizz damage for our build, you could probably instead take Sovereignty, and if you also had an Enlighten level 4 instead of an Enlighten level 3 like me, you could probably go Slayer instead, and I think it will be more damage overall. And then you could get the Forbidden Flesh and Flame for probably Master of Metal is what you'd want for getting more impales, more armor if you've impaled an enemy recently, and then more added fizz damage for each impale that's on an enemy. That's probably what you'd want to do. Maybe you could take a Fortitude if you felt like you were too squishy, if you went the Slayer route. So that's more or less what I would recommend. And then also, gem-wise, I'm just using the Forbidden Flesh and Flame for Outmatch and Outlast, which, don't mind as I pull this up on the side over here so I can read what it does. It gives you 25% chance to gain a Frenzy Charge on kill with main hand, and a 25% chance to gain an Endurance Charge on kill with offhand. And then it gives you 10% more fizz damage while it max Frenzy Charges, and 10% reduced physical damage taken while at maximum Endurance Charges. So this is a decent mapping option, but against bosses it really doesn't do a whole lot, unless it's a boss that actually summons adds, in which case then you can generate charges for yourself. But it's not that great. You could instead very much so take Overwhelm from Slayer on your Forbidden Flesh and Flame. If you want the champion route, you could take Overwhelm instead, which gives you base crit chance for attacks with weapons is 8%, plus 10% to critical strike multiplier per nearby enemy up to 100%, and nearby enemies have minus 30% to critical strike multiplier. So just kind of a good general crit node to take if you wanted to go that route instead. But yeah, that's very much so just the character. I'll be making a couple adjustments to him and seeing what I can do, kind of making things stronger where I possibly can. And yeah, with that, let's kind of just run. I set up this, I guess this is a temple map. I didn't actually look at what map this was. I just kind of set this map up to run with this character, just to kind of show. It's only a T14 and it's Baron. Again, I'm only level 90. So there's still a lot to do with this character, still a lot to go, but I figured I'd still show him off at least a little bit and have a little bit of fun and just kind of show you guys what he does. I have killed Sirius with this guy. At the very least, I've killed a couple of bosses with him just to test how it goes, because at the end of the day, actually, Impale is very nice in the sense that your damage that you deal, when you're looking at your skill tree, the damage that you deal with, like against regular enemies versus bosses, really doesn't decrease by that much, which is incredibly nice. So it makes the build actually very strong for dealing with bosses as well, if you're good with being, you know, a melee character, obviously. Anar's Memory of the Sacred Grove, nice. That's actually, I think, worth some money. Nice. Yeah, this character has been just a ton of fun to put together, been very easy to put together overall. I just wanted a good, it'd been a while since I made just a good generic melee character. And so I just kind of felt like throwing this guy together, and it's been a ton of fun to put together, been a ton of fun to use, and it's overall very easy and quite cheap to put together too. Honestly, you know, you can min max, of course, as you can with just about any build. You can min max and spend you know, tens of hundreds of divines if you really wanted to, and make him the greatest character to ever exist. But that's certainly not the route that I go. I'm more of a, I feel like I'm more ADHD when it comes to putting together builds, where I just kind of go, you know what, that sounds fun, and I put it together, and I get it to maybe level 93, 95-ish, and I kind of go, you know, I managed to kill, you know, I tested out killing the regular versions of bosses, and I go, you know what, it killed the regular versions of bosses, that's good enough for me, and I move on. I am not a, I'm not an uber killer player. I really don't view the ubers that highly. I think they're cool content, and if you're able to kill them, then, you know, more power to you. I am just not. I've maybe ever only made like 1 or 2 characters that are strong enough to actually go and fight ubers, but me myself, I am just not much of an uber player, an uber enjoyer, because I feel like most builds in the game they aren't going to really be able to do it, depending on how, you know, how good you are at building and how much time you really spend doing that kind of thing. Also, that's a couple fractures. Look at the Carnal, I guess. Spiny, I guess. Sure. I will say, also, while I was thinking about it, because I mentioned TOTA earlier. This character is quite good for Child of the Ancestor, though. It's, I ran one a little bit before I recorded this video, and it was totally fine. The only thing is, obviously, I have 3,000 life, so at the end of the day, am I surviving all of the big hits or anything like that? No, absolutely not. I am 100% getting one-shot by things that one-shot, you know, tanky characters. So if there's a Kahuturoa or a Goliath of the Night or something like that, then yeah, obviously that is going to completely obliterate me, and there's not much I can do about it. But I do have Life Leech. I have some Life Leech actually taken on the tree as well, because those nodes are just strong. So, you know, any damage that you take is overall, you know, it's not usually not too bad as long as you're able to actually, live the hit, then you're usually good like that. Like you see, I just took a ton of damage, but I managed to regen it all, basically all of it back right away. And that's sort of one of the reasons as well that I'm trying to get spell suppression. Spell suppression, it kind of leads to a lot of, there's kind of a lot of instances where I tend to get one-shotted far more often than I probably should. So getting spell suppression should help alleviate that, or at least I hope. Expedition wise, I could do it. I probably won't for the sake of this video, even though I am running all of my ritual and stuff, but the enemies in Expedition are definitely scary, and I'm honestly too lazy to do that right now. But ritual is easy. I touch the thing and I'm in the thing. Gameplay-wise, I will say as well, is quite simple. You are in Sand Stance for most of the game, and then if you run into a target that is tougher to take down that you need to swap to, then you swap to Blood Stance, and you kill the enemy with in Blood Stance, like that, man. But yeah, most of the time you're just going to be in Sand Stance because that is your clear. It also blinds enemies on hit, so quite good. That is a lot of jewelry. All right. But yeah, it's very simple, very simple, very good to just put together. Yay, orbs of fusing. We'll need those. All right, where is the boss though? Is it up there? It's up there. Oh. Oh god. Oh no, oh jeez. Oh jeez, oh man. Up. Alright, and per usual, I'll put that down. And done. I actually probably should have waited, because she could have given me another ability. Or another set of mobs there. Oh my gosh, he's going to cast me into a pit of infinite tortures. No! And he's dead. Oh, she actually still ups the stakes in here if she didn't do it previously. I see. Alright, well that's dead. Oh, it's this stupid boss. Good grief. But I'm purely in Blood Stance right there, as you can see. Like, I'm just doing that. Oh, something as a quick mention, as I'm thinking about it at the end of this here map, is if you swapped to Blood Stance recently, instead of being at 9 spikes, I believe it is by default, you'll be at 11 spikes. So you get you get 2 additional spikes every time that you've swapped recently. So you have a couple additional 9 spikes there. So 11 spikes for now. So it lasts for a couple of seconds, then it should go back to 9. Yep, there it goes. So if you've swapped stances recently, you get 2 additional spikes. So my recommendation is that if you're bossing with this, or if you're about to kill a major target, again, be in sand stance for the most part, and then when you want to kill something that's a bit of a bigger target, swap to blood stance when you're about to go in and DPS them. Otherwise, just run around in sand stance for as long as you can. But that's sort of the big deal with the build overall, though, is just kind of swapping stances when it makes the most sense, when it's the most appropriate to. That's a chance orb, which I don't want. But yeah, that is basically this character in a nutshell. I could run a Cirrus if I wanted to, but I kind of want to save my experience because I'd like to level this guy up some more. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. I hope this is a much simpler build than what I usually run. But I wanted to do something simple this time around. So I hope that you're having a ton of fun with Trial of the Ancestors. I hope that you're having a good time in the league. It is such a fun time. This is such a good patch for Path of Exile, and I've been so excited playing it, and I've made a ton of builds. I hope that you're having a good time. I hope this is helpful. The POB, as per usual, will be down below in the description, along with my Twitch link if you want to come say hi to me when I am live. I'm alive, well, right now, but also fairly infrequently, but I'm trying to be more consistent about that. Anyway, I hope that you guys enjoy. Once again, thank you very much. Let me know if you have any questions down below. Happy to answer or talk further about them. Bye now.